Geoengineering is the artificial manipulation of the Earth's environment on a large scale. In the early 1990s, American theoretical physicist Edward Teller was among the first scientists to model an experiment that would address the issue of global warming. He speculated that aluminium oxide could be injected into the upper atmosphere. It would act like tiny mirrors and deflect a portion of the sun's rays back into space. It's not thought to have gone beyond the drawing board, but activists believe it may secretly have been put into practice.
Some of the literal fallout from this chemtrail project are these 10-micron particulates falling by the megaton on unsuspecting people, plants, and wildlife. Now, a human hair is 100 microns across. 10 microns is submicroscopic. It can impact our lungs, it can inflame our hearts, give us heart disease, leading to fatality. So this material comes down randomly in invisible clumps.
David Dickey is a landscape contractor and spends a lot of time outdoors.
Contrail development is different than it ever has been in the past. And I do remember one in January from about 2002, where the number of flights overhead were extremely unusual. The number of contrails in the sky was unbelievable. We were counting 40 to 60 flights, and out of those 40 to 60 flights, most of them left an incredibly persistent large plume, which would spread out and cover the sky.
Because of his profession, Dave has to be familiar with the trace chemicals usually found in the environment. He regularly takes water and soil samples and has them tested.
There was some research done that claimed that aluminum oxide could be used to reduce global warming. And I thought that if there was any chance that aluminum oxide would be used in the atmosphere, that it would show up in precipitation.
He collected rain samples on days when he noticed heavier than usual air traffic and took them to a lab.
So I expected to see baseline measurements where aluminum would show up in precipitation at about 0.0093 milligrams per liter. A very small amount of aluminum naturally present in precipitation. It was 20 times higher approximately than what was expected to find.
Dave Dickey believes what he collected was fallout from chemically laden contrails.
I was really hoping that we'd find natural water samples. And when I did find aluminum and barium, it's just another one of the indicating factors that something was unusual.
When geoengineers ponder ways to alter climate systems by introducing chemicals into the upper atmosphere, one of the most efficient and economical ways to do this is with the use of pipeline aircraft.
We're certainly not going to do anything that might endanger the climate system. Geoengineering has been around for a number of decades, but because the climate system seems to be changing more rapidly than we expected, then we're resurrecting the idea and considering it more seriously.
Dr. Tom Woodley works at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Colorado. He's published theories about the use of geoengineering as a strategy to combat global warming.
The particular type of geoengineering that I've considered in some detail is putting sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. If there's a big explosive volcanic eruption, like the eruption in 1991 of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, sulfur dioxide is injected into the stratosphere, aerosols form, and there is a measurable and fairly well understood cooling effect.
The sulfur dioxide from volcanoes reflects solar rays, which allows less heat into the atmosphere, resulting in cooler temperatures on Earth.
We could fly airplanes in the upper atmosphere, in the stratosphere, and have big tanks of sulfur dioxide that we injected into the stratosphere as the planes flew around.
These ideas have been around for a long time, and they range everything from firing artillery shells full of soil into the stratosphere to using synthetic chemicals like aluminum oxide, which, if the particles were small enough, they might float around in the atmosphere for a number of years and reflect sunlight. And finally, using gases such as sulfur dioxide, which reflects sunlight. So in effect, what you would achieve is putting millions of tiny mirrors in the atmosphere that will reflect sunlight.
That simple explanation is not reflected in the beliefs of those who worry about a government conspiracy.
The government of the United States and other governments are not going to admit to the chemtrail project. They would have to admit the dire gravity of the situation we are in. Now we are far down the road, it becomes harder and harder to admit that in fact this has been going on for years.
Well, I think it's not true, because the main tenet that these people profess is that there is some increase in the amount of jet contrails in the atmosphere, and therefore it's due to the expansion of these government-funded black projects. Well, the fact of the matter is that the increase in jet contrails can easily be attributed to one thing: increase in air travel, and that there is some concern about the effect that may have on climate, but not because of some kind of a conspiracy involving government agencies operating in secret to do some nefarious things.
People on both sides of the argument look at the evidence and draw different conclusions. But could the science of geoengineering have a less benign purpose than climate manipulation?